Blanche, Blanche, Blanche. Oh my goodness, do I wish I was in class to go ahead and talk about scene five with you all. There is so much to unpack, and there is so much still to come. And I know that I can't say much more than that, but chances are right now you have a million alarm bells going off in your head as you think a little bit about Blanche's actions, what she says, how all of a sudden some pieces might start to come together of, well, Blanche is a teacher. She didn't finish out the school year. Why might that be? And then the actions of scene five kind of have all of these things start to kind of come into place a little bit of why maybe she showed up unexpectedly, um, why it is that um, she says everything I own is in that trunk as if she has to leave on a very very short period of time. All of these things start to fall into place, and what's amazing too is this is scene five. This is in the middle of the play. We still have so much to do, and we talked about in this play how there will be times where you love every one of these characters, or at least they try and win you over a little bit. There will be times where you hate these characters. But I want to remind you of some of the great points that you made so early on, which is maybe we can't think about these characters as good or bad. It's not fair to put them in an either or category. Life is not that clean. Life is not that simple. And my goodness, if we were starting to be won over by Blanche and be a little bit more Team Blanche in the battle for Stella against Stanley, this end of the scene undoes all of it. So I want to take a few moments to try and unpack that. I also want to talk a little bit about Blanche and Mitch, because that's going to set up your reading for next week, in which Blanche and Mitch go on a date, and we'll try and unpack that. But let's start with the big news, obviously. With her throwing herself at this young man who's probably around your age, and Blanche's we know in her 30s. And here we see Blanche's, call it what it is, her hypocrisy, right? Like, she's critiqued Stella for running away with Stanley and only having this one reason they're together, this really physical reason. And then Blanche goes and totally undoes any credibility that she started to have with that. Like, her whole facade of her being morally superior to Stella and certainly Stanley, now all of a sudden their relationship looks not that bad. It's incredibly flawed, right? Don't get me wrong. Stanley and Stella have a whole bag of issues that they need to unpack. But now all of a sudden, Blanche's moral high ground has totally disintegrated here. Blanche is willing to condemn them, and yet, compared with Blanche's behavior, Stella and Stanley at least have an adult relationship. It's crazy, even when you look at kind of thinking about why do they have the Stephen Eunice bit, right? Stephen Eunice talked about infidelity, but then coming back together. All of these things that on the surface, Blanche says, well, I don't belong here. I'm up here. Boom. All of a sudden, I shouldn't even say that they're steps down. It's a full crumbling, right? She is totally guilty of all of these things and more that she's accused Stella of. And I think that's a really interesting thing, and really heartbreaking thing to see. We also see that Blanche becomes really shaky early on when Stanley starts to bring up this guy named Shaw that he knows, and that Shaw told him some things, and Blanche, of course, denies. And at first glance, we seem to think, well, this is just Stanley being Stanley. He's pushing and he's prying and he's doing what he didn't seem to, of diving into people's personal property and pushing the envelope. And all of a sudden we go, is there any validity to his actions of being suspicious, right? And so we start to play with that a little bit. I'm also left thinking a little bit about Mitch, poor Mitch, who shows up at the end of scene five with a bouquet of flowers. And we get the impression that he's quite taken with Blanche. And Blanche has told us and told Stella that she's quite taken with him too. But if that's true, why does she make the action she does at the end of scene five right before the date, right? Is she truly interested in who Mitch is? Or is she maybe a little bit more interested in what Mitch represents? I'll kind of leave that there until you get to scene six and beyond, which you're going to be reading next week, where they go on their date. But Mitch does not seem to be. He seems to be a really, really nice guy, but like when you put him next to Stanley, like he's not as strong or as confident. Like he doesn't seem to have these things. Stella says that it's Stanley the only one who's going to be able to get ahead. Mitch is certainly not like one of the guys that used to run around in Blanche's social circle. So why Mitch? Is it because Mitch truly is a great guy, and I think in many ways he is, or is there some other motivation for why Blanche might be saying, "Ooh, like, yep, you sound great. We'll hang on to that a little bit." But I think Mitch is a character we wanna hang on to. Is she truly interested in him, or is he kind of just a final lifeline that maybe she has? We'll watch all of that. But what we have here at the end of scene 5 is heartbreaking. Blanche's past starts to come into focus a little bit more for us, and her issues with truth seem to be coming to light a little bit more as well, right? Like all these little lies she's told about how Stella is her older sister, not true. That Blanche is near 30. She's not. She's over 30. And I use that idea of like her lies are coming to light intentionally because if you think back to scene 3, Blanche, and even before that, but especially scene 3, is like obsessed with the light. Like, ooh, turn that light down. I don't want to be looked at in this merciless glare, she says to Stella as early as scene 1. And then in scene 3, ooh, Mitch, cover up that land, or cover up the light with a paper lantern to soften the glow. That light we'll be talking about as far as the symbolism with that. Hang on to that as well. So, obviously, I'm sorry I can't be with you to discuss this. I'm so excited and so interested to hear your thoughts on all the things that are starting to fall into place for you here in scene 5. But I'll remind you, you're scene 5 of 11. Like you're about to hit the middle point and then transition. So we are a long way from being over. And remember too that we opened this by saying, and not just this video, but we opened this play with you all saying that people are not all good, people are not all bad. It's not going to be that simple. Even with all of your disgust of Blanche, Tennessee Williams is going to give you something in scene 6 to just, I don't want to say necessarily win you over, but just add like another wrinkle of complexity to this woman. And so, her constructed sense of self is starting to disintegrate in front of our eyes. And yet, even though her past is now coming into focus, there are other parts that we don't know yet, and that's what you have ahead of you. So sorry for a little bit of a rambling spree, but there's just so much that I wish that I could know for what you're talking about. Take a few minutes after this video to chat with the people that you're with, either online, in class, or a whole group thing, for where you're at and what you're left thinking about as far as all of our major characters, Stanley and Stella, and certainly Blanche, as well as Mitch. Add him in as our biggest supporting character. Where are you at with these characters? And what can we start to piece together? What inferences can we make based on what happens in scene 5? Keep up the great work. You've got next week to do scenes 6 and 7, I believe, maybe 8, but I think 6 and 7. And then I'll be back to the week after that. So not this coming Monday, but next Monday, I'll be back online, and we'll finish the play together. Keep up the great work. I can't wait to hear your thoughts. And I hope all is well with you all. Take care.